Good afternoon and welcome to the New England Canada Business Council. Merci et bienvenue aujourd'hui. We are delighted to have this opportunity to speak with Roger Kusner, Canada's Consul General in Boston, about the border reopening, which is now about 13 hours old, and find out more about how it is going and also provide an opportunity for you to get educated on what you need to know to be prepared if you're a U.S. Citizen or permanent resident who's looking to enter Canada, and some of the additional material you may need to submit for visiting various provinces. Before we get to Roger, I just want to say first a big thank you on behalf of our board of directors to our sponsors who've made this event possible today. Our platinum sponsors, TD Bank and Pierce Atwood, and our gold sponsors, A.N. Derringer, Enbridge, and Liberty Utilities. We're very grateful to have this opportunity to provide this public service and educate people about the border reopening. Now, we have promised to tell you everything you need to know in the next 28 minutes. So I want, without any further ado, to get to Roger Kusner, our Consul General, to introduce us to how to be prepared for the border reopening. Roger, please take it away. And we will have, when the time comes, the opportunity for you to put questions in the Q&A. Please put them in the Q&A rather than the chat, and we will get to as many as we're able to. So, Mr. Consul General.
Peter, thanks so much. And let me just start off the top by offering my congratulations on your new post. In our conversation earlier, you reassured me that no recount will be necessary. And you may question that yourself as whether or not you would have liked to have had one as you get deeper into the role. But we had a great relationship with John, and I look forward to working with you to so that we can benefit, the citizens on both sides of the border and the issues around the border, and what makes us great and our relationship great. I know that there are some people on the call that have been involved with moving goods and services across the border over the last 18 months. And I want to tip the hat to them because to keep the wheels moving and the supply chains full and providing services for folks, I think you should be commended on that with all the challenges. As a consumer, we take so much for granted, but to accomplish what's taken place over the last 18 months with supply chain, a lot of people deserve a lot of credit for the hard work that they've put in. And that was 18 months ago. That was referred to at the time as a temporary closure. It seems so long ago. The former president and our prime minister had agreed that to get a better handle on the pandemic, better handle on the control of the pandemic, that it was necessary. So we have come out with new guidelines around the around access to the border. 13 hours ago, fully vaccinated U.S. citizens or permanent residents of the U.S. If they've been vaccinated 14 days prior, so fully vaccinated, then they would be allowed access across the border. As long as they used any of the 4 approved vaccines here in Canada that have been signed off by the Public Health of Canada. Children under 12 years of age who are not vaccinated are allowed to cross the border as long as they're accompanied by fully vaccinated parents or guardians. And the other stipulation around children under 12 is that they are not permitted to attend any kind of a gathering, summer camp, hockey school, whatever it might be. They are not permitted to attend that. That aspect of the rules is really based on the honor system, and we think that with how important the issue is with access, that people will abide by that, play by the rules. Although there have been some instances already where people have presented falsified vaccination documents. And it comes, in doing so, it comes with a stiff penalty. There are a couple of folks just the end of July that were caught falsifying and presenting those documents at the border. They were both fined $20,000. I know some on the call said, "Yeah, that's Canadian, so it's not really a lot of money." But if that's your approach to $20,000, the pandemic hasn't been too bad for you. But we think it's the paperwork that would have been necessary and the rules in just crossing the border, as far as you can have your COVID test, you can have your you have to be tested prior to crossing the border. You have to have verification of your vaccination. But if your passport had expired 2 weeks previous, you're not getting across. All that paperwork that you've dealt with over the past number of years, it's still relevant, it's still pertinent, and has to be abided by. The borders that have opened so far, we're getting sort of dribs and drabs. It's tough to see what's taking place. I understand St. Stephen. There's a bit of a tie-up in St. Stephen, but most of the other entry points are going fairly well. I think there's a few in Ontario that where there's some backup, but things seem to be going fairly well. What we're encouraging is that all travelers utilize the ArriveCan app on their phone. I know I've used it in the past, and it's user friendly. I am anything but a technical guy, and I've been able to sort of get my fat fingers around it, and I found it tremendously helpful. Each of the provinces, just as in the States, each of the provinces have their own approach and their own rules. It's incumbent on those crossing that they understand the region that they're going to. I have both Marc Jacques and Marc-Antoine Dumas on the call with me, and Marc has shared with Peter, or is going to share with Peter, a number of links from the provinces. So you want to be aware of what the criteria is for the provinces, each of the provinces, because they are all different. I'm here in New Brunswick now. I'm just in transit, heading back to Wellesley, and the mask mandate was dropped earlier this week. There are still some accommodations and some businesses that require masking. Again, you just have to be aware. It's your responsibility. You have to assume that your own responsibility to make sure you have that. And the other thing that Marc sort of brought up in our earlier chat was that just like the United States, when you get to that border, if there's something that the guard sees, that isn't kosher, they have that ability to say no, and they've refused. I haven't gotten the particulars on some of the refusals so far at St. Stephen, but the article that I saw said that they had turned a number of people back, 4 or 5 people back, and so ultimately it's the call on that agent. So and the same goes as you enter the United States.
And Raj, I'll just point out, Marc was nice enough to put that web link up there, and we also will follow up. Everybody who's registered today will get a follow-up email from us with links to a number of different informational sources. Don't have the time to go in on super great detail, but important to note for New Englanders, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland and Labrador, Prince Edward Island, all will have additional restrictions beyond what the Canadian federal government is applying. So depending on the specific province you're going to, very important to check ahead of time.
Yes, very much so. And hopefully we can share that information. So anyway, with that being said, I think if we want to open it for questions, if there are any questions we will do our best to try to answer, or we can call in Mark, who has a wealth of information and wealth of background and knowledge on the border stuff. And if we can,
we should maybe just clarify ArriveCan. It's a smartphone app. You can also do it through the portal on the desktop. And just, if there are any folks who haven't used it before, from your own experience, Roger, are there things you would point out, just good, how to be prepared to make the most efficient use of ArriveCan?
No, it was straight ahead, very clear and direct. We had to, when we came back to Canada and entered into Canada, they present you with 2 test kits, and so they check on. You have to do a test on the first day. The Purolator picks it up. They come back on day 8. You have to check in each day on the ArriveCan app. If there's any bulletins or anything, they can contact you with that. But no, good sharing of information. They ask you about your symptoms and what have you. I know back the second time that we had come back to Nova Scotia, we had both the Nova Scotia Health Authority had an agent, a compliance agent, come to the house and just to check, make sure that we're all there. No, there weren't any other people there. And through the federal app, they contract the local police, the police force, and they came out just to make sure that there wasn't anybody else in the house, in the place that we had to provide a quarantine space. Now we know that that's not necessary, and that's the great news. That's the great first step forward, I think, in what's taking place here today and what we're talking about today.
Great. And just looking at some of the questions that are coming in, it might be worth, Roger, not to totally put you on the spot, but a bit of a primer on how federalism works in Canada and some of the distinctions, between what may be under the responsibility of the federal government, what may be under the responsibility of provinces. For example,
Yep.
People are asking about universities, and students, from America getting back, and that typically will be a decision at the provincial level rather than made out of Ottawa.
Exactly. Yes, Canada is a federation of 10 provinces and our territories. With regard to healthcare, we are responsible for the border, for the federal border, as a federal government. But when it comes to healthcare, we work with the provinces on major issues. We have an act, the Canada Health Act. We provide funding to each of the provinces to deliver services as long as they're in compliance with the Canada Health Act. But it's entirely up to the province to determine how those services are delivered. It's like the feds get to pay and the province get to say. And and there are nuances, as long as they're in compliance with the Canadian Health Act, that's how the services are delivered. The police agencies, each province has their own, they can determine their own police agency. We've got 2 provinces that have provincial police forces. We have, a number of municipal police forces. The RCMP have presence with very specific federal duties in the other provinces. So we function as a federation, and again, there's a lot of consistencies, but there may be nuance when it comes to compliance with any rules around COVID. There may be some, they may differ from one to the next, and that's incumbent on yourself to make sure that you're aware of where it is you're going. So.
We have a number of people have asked about the need for having a quarantine plan, so that if you travel to Canada and at some point during your visit, even if you've been vaccinated, we know there are these breakthrough cases, what you need to be thinking about in terms of a plan for quarantining in Canada. Don't know, Roger, if you're prepared immediately with a question for that, or if we can add that to our list of good questions that we're compiling from attendees.
Well, I know, having gone through a couple of quarantines myself, when you show up, you know, they ask you where you're going to quarantine, and is the facility stocked? Do you have anybody that's staying at that quarantine? They put you through a series of questions, and you sign an attestation that this in fact is what's going to take place, and then you get to go back to your place of quarantine, and your wife tells you everything that has to be done around that particular quarantine place. That's been my experience anyway, speaking from my experience. But there was a provision where you had to cross the border. When you cross the border, there was you had to stay at a government hotel for 3 days until your first test got back. And so with the changes today, that no longer stands. Anybody that, you don't have to quarantine if you're fully vaccinated. If you bring in, you show up at the border with your test, and your test is negative, and you enter in, there's no need to quarantine. So, you know, you're good to go there. If you aren't vaccinated and you're going on essential work, you'll have to continue to go through a quarantine plan and present a quarantine plan.
Great. Excellent. I should have made clear at the beginning of our presentation, we will get a lot of questions today that we expect Roger and the consular office won't be able to answer immediately, but we definitely see tremendous value in collecting questions from you. You know, we have one, for example, on how early you can begin the ArriveCAN process. How many days before you travel are you okay? Any special requirements around a 91-year-old who I believe has been successfully vaccinated? Really, it's just proof of vaccine and proof of no COVID. Correct? Yes,
yeah, proof of vaccine, proof of no COVID. You get your test as you present your test at the border.
Right. We have one question which sounds like it might be up to the particular border official you meet. It's somebody who unfortunately has a vaccination card which has their first name written on it twice, but not their last name, although has the proper birth date and dates of vaccinations. So, Roger, it sounds like that's probably a roll of the dice, depending on the specific staff person from border control you're dealing with.
It might be, you know, like if that's a clerical thing, you might want to go back to the source and see if they can rectify that before you change, just to save yourself, you know, any explaining at the border, just sort of better your chances of not being questioned. But yeah, you might want to go back to the source and maybe try to get that sorted out.
Yeah, that does seem like, depending on how long you're driving or if you've bought an airplane ticket, probably not a good idea to roll the dice and see, you know, if they cut you slack. Are we able to talk about the types of COVID tests that are accepted? We have one report that there have been people who've had PCR tests from Walgreens that have nevertheless got turned back.
I haven't heard of that, but I'd like if Mark could maybe turn his mic on, and he may be more aware, you know, of what. Okay, Mark,
Yeah,
Mark or Mark John?
That one, I'm not sure what to say, because the line is no change to requirement of negative pre-departure PCR test. Perhaps that Walgreens test was a different type of test. Perhaps it was not a PCR test. I don't know about that specific case, but a PCR test.
The test also the test results need to indicate also where the test was taken with the address, by which lab, and indicate when it was taken, because it's only valid for 72 hours after the test was done. And so if any of these information is missing, then the test is not valid. It needs to have your name, where it was done, by whom, at what time, when.
Great. And within 72 hours of when you're coming across the border.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Important.
If you don't have a question there, maybe I could ask either Marc Antoine or Marc Jacques if there are any gaps in some of the information that I would have shared.
No, just one thing I would say is, and we can share the website. There's a link. It's a wizard for travel to Canada. And so you go in and it takes you step by step through the process of everything you have to think through to determine if you're eligible or not, and if your quarantine plan's good, if you're, everything. And when you go into the ArriveCAN app, it also takes you step by step through what you need to think of for your quarantine plan and your proof of vaccination and so on. And so these tools are very useful to help you determine if you've got everything all set to go. One thing that's important is that it's probably not a problem for anyone in the United States, but the documentation needs to be in English or French. If it's not in English or French, you need to have a certified translation, because the border officers will only administer, make a decision based on documents that are in Canada's official languages. So let's say, for example, somebody got their vaccination in a third country and the proof of vaccination is in Spanish, that would not be acceptable unless it's translated. So that's also important to know. And the ArriveCAN, going back to the question of what would you recommend for a 92-year-old, and 92-year-olds are sometimes tech savvy, but my mother, who's 73, isn't. And she was asking me, do I need to use the ArriveCAN app or the desktop, or, it's complicated for her, but you do need to do it. If you do not do it, that's one of the requirements, and you will be found to be non-compliant once you reach the border. So if you're not able to do it yourself, ask someone to help you out and do it for you, but it needs to be done. And it can be done up to 72 hours before you reach the border, because that's the information, some of the information that you have to provide is proof of a negative PCR test. And that can only be done within 72 hours. So if you do it in advance, you won't be able to complete it until you have your test. But you can certainly go ahead and put your proof of vaccination, your passport information, those kinds of things. You can do it in advance, but you won't be able to complete it until you have your proof of a negative PCR test.
Great. We have an interesting question from Joe Bevilacqua at the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce in Lowell about any restrictions on the delivery of products or components from the U.S. over the border. Presumably, if the truck driver can pass the COVID test and has the proper documentation, what's in the truck can come into Canada, or are there any restrictions on movements of certain types of products or components?
I'd go back to my opening comment, and the goods and services that have continued to cross the border, and that relationship is such a special relationship between Canada and the United States. We take for granted all the commerce that happens on a daily basis between the two countries, and during COVID. Those goods and services still made their way to their destination. So that will continue to happen. Well, hopefully, if we continue to find resolution on some of the Buy America stuff and some of the concerns around the Buy America stuff, then hopefully that will remain uninterrupted and serve both sides of the border well.
Excellent. Well, I want to assure everybody the many questions that you have submitted, not all of which we're going to be able to get to, we are going to compile. We're sharing with the Consul General's office, and we will be following up with everybody who's registered today with some of the more specific answers. And just Roger would certainly want to offer you the opportunity to talk about the possibility that depending on what happens with COVID numbers, there may need to be a border closure again in the future.
Well, and we're seeing it in some areas now. You look at what's taking place in Australia, and where they had this thing, they had this thing, thought they had the tiger by the tail, and now they're back into major lockdowns in a significant number of areas in Australia. I think, I know from a Canadian perspective, and I assume that the United States is absolutely like-minded. They're doing what they have to do based on fact and data and science, and making the best possible decisions that they can make as they view it and analyze it. And that's what they've done to date. We had another flare-up in Nova Scotia back 6 months ago. And the officials there just tighten the screws again. They really tighten screws around the public access and what have you. And they got a handle on it. And there are maybe 2 or 3 cases a week now in Nova Scotia. So they've got their response was quick and sufficient. I would think that after lifting some of the regulations in New Brunswick, Premier Higgs he'll be pretty nimble as well. If he sees that if he doesn't like where numbers are going, then he'll respond as well. And nationally, that's the Prime Minister will not hesitate to make the decisions that keep Canadians safe. And I'm sure that's the same thought process on the southern side of the border. But I think that's probably why you see it's been frustrating for many. We thought we should have had a handle on this, and we thought we should have had people, additional movement earlier on. But people have been cautious, and the decisions have been based on, as I said, science and data, and they'll continue to do that.
Great. Well, Consul General Kusner, we can't thank you enough for your time, for sharing information, also for being willing to hear and collect questions from our participants today. Mark Jacques, thank you very much for putting your email address in the chat for follow-up questions. We, NECBC, will be reaching back out to all of you who've registered, and Mark has kindly enough offered up his address, mark.jacques@international.gc.ca. And Marc Antoine, thank you also for all the good information that you've contributed. 30 minutes is enough for, so we promised everything. We tried to get to as close to everything, but it sounds like at the end of the day, be sure you are prepared with ArriveCAN, be sure you're prepared with your test, be sure you know about the restrictions in the province, and bring some patience and goodwill to the process. It's not going to be 100% smooth on day 1 or day 2, or maybe not even day 3. And Consul General, I don't know if there's any additional comments you might want to make before we let everybody go.
Great job on your initial hosting here with us anyway. I think I don't know if they filled that post with Alex Trebek or not, but on Jeopardy, but you did a great job, and thanks for the opportunity to Marc Antoine and Mark for being on the call as well. Just be patient, be kind to each other, and we're going to get through this.
Very good. Well, thank you, and thank you everybody for signing up and participating. Look for a follow-up email from us. And I just want to, again, one more time, on behalf of the New England Canada Business Council, our deep thanks to our sponsors who made the event possible today. Our platinum sponsors, TD Bank and Pierce Atwood, and our gold sponsors, A.N. Derringer, Enbridge, and Liberty Utilities. Thanks so much for helping get information out about a topic we know is top of mind for so many New Englanders who are very eager to get back to Canada. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Peter.